Luke. DA and I are having a good debate here. What do you? What's your initial thoughts here when you hear officially today that we have Trevor Harris back in the stable?
Well, I think that there's two things. It's good. I mean, he was playing great football when he wasn't hurt, and I think that they got him at a price where they're going to be able to bring somebody else in and essentially continue to, you have to continue to, I was listening to you guys at the end, you have to continue to groom the next guy. Absolutely. So I don't think it hurt him pocketbook wise, and that's probably the best thing, best case scenario for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Bring a guy back that was throwing the ball well when he was healthy. And you shouldn't be surprised, because when Jeremy O'Day talked to the media at the end of the year, one of the first things he said was, hey, we want to bring back our core. We want to bring the guys back in the locker room. And that's what every successful team does at some point in time, is they've got to balance, when or how long their core guys have together versus how much that costs, and then also where the guys that can compete and push them out of a job eventually are coming from. So I think it was best case scenario for Saskatchewan, because you can still get another quarterback. You can still try to create a competitive environment. And I think that any other quarterback that comes in here after Trevor Harris should be pretty excited, because I think that if you look into the last 2 years, the one thing that you know is that you're going to get an opportunity to play at some point.
Do you think we're going to find out rather quickly on what this organization thinks about Shea Patterson?
I think so. Shea was a bit sporadic this year when he got in. I think that his clock, he's still a young quarterback. His clock didn't slow down as much as I think he would have liked when he turns on the film. But again, you need reps to do that. I wouldn't close the book on him totally just yet. I'd bring him back if I could, because again, he's a young guy and he has shown some poise. And keep in mind, he's also a young guy that needed to go through a second offensive coordinator, right? There's been no consistency. So I think that bringing a guy back like that, one of the benefits is, hey, he comes in a lot looser. He comes in knowing the system, and he comes in ready to compete, right? So again, the other piece about Shea is you want guys in the locker room like that, who just want to come into work, who are going to beat the coaches into work, who are going to do everything that you ask, plus more. You got to remember that in locker rooms, you need people to lead at all levels, whether they're on the field being the best player on the team, or whether they're depth guys, encouraging guys and building into the special teams guys. So again, I wouldn't close the book on Shea Patterson at all.
Oh, good. Hey, DA here, Luke. Just got news. Trey Ford was extended 3 years by Edmonton, so it looks like they're going to keep him in their quarterback room. Give us some insider, from a player's perspective on to what you said. You have 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks that are going to split. How difficult is that on a coaching staff to say limited reps? We got to get ready to play. We got to pick a number one versus having that battle. And especially in the CFL with such a short training camp relatively.
Well, the one thing, if you truly want the insight from a locker room perspective, is those guys come in with a battle in mind anyways, right? It's predetermined that you're coming into an environment where you need to compete. You hear the terminology, control what you can control. If you're not competing to be the number one guy, regardless of how many reps you're getting in camp, you're not going to be a guy, period. Right? So you can sit there and whine and complain that you only got 10 snaps in training camp. Or you can be like, man, that was the best 10 snaps I've ever put on film, and I'm making it really hard on these coaches to make a decision. When you're at the spot where the Saskatchewan Roughriders are right now, bringing Trevor Harris back is a sign. Hey, look, we have our guy. But it's also an indication of, look, we're also looking for another guy too, because age is a factor at this point. And there's still some quarterbacks out there. I think that they avoided, listen, I know what everybody thinks about Trey, and I know he's Canadian and he's got some great athletic ability. But honestly, I think that they avoided a landmine there. You've got guys like, I know that Jake Mayer's got a bad reputation coming out of Calgary, but as a backup quarterback, I mean, he's already one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league today alone, right? So you're going to have to consider certain guys. But again, what's the pocketbook read? You can't end up in the red, obviously. And the nice thing about it is you're coming into training camp, regardless of how many quarterbacks you have in the room, and they know, look, Trevor is the guy, but I need to compete my tail off because I'm going to get an opportunity to play significant reps at some point this year, okay? And I'm not a number 2 guy. I'm the guy. And if I get an opportunity to play as the guy, I'm never letting that opportunity go. That's what every single one of those quarterbacks is going to come into. Any quarterback that comes in and says, oh, man, I'm just here to contribute, I'm just here to be a guy, they won't last past the first cut. And you can tell. You'll see those guys right away.
Maybe that's what a Davis Alexander shows last year in Montreal. Right? Do you think there is a chance that there is something working out here that we could see Jake Mayer as a rider?
Listen, what's the argument against Jake Mayer if you're any other team that is looking for a backup quarterback? There is none, right? He's a guy that's played significant reps. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's going to be extremely motivated. Sometimes, guys, a fresh start is all you need, right? Sometimes players get to the point where the environment, no matter how positive or how negative it is in the media, just becomes a toxic environment for you. I look at Jake Mayer still as a guy that, again, you can't discount the reps that this guy's played for the Calgary Stampeders, bad or good, right? Now, listen, when he played for the Calgary Stampeders.
In a dysfunctional organization. Like those reps,
listen, don't buy into the, oh man, you know, he was in a dysfunctional spot, blah blah blah. I get that, but that has nothing to do on a quarterback's ability to get out there and compete, right? He could have turned that into a chip on his shoulder. I actually think that if he was in a dysfunctional situation and he let that get to them, that actually says more about Jake Mayer than it says about the organization. So I don't buy into that stuff. I think that here's a guy that's played some reps. We loved him when we played against him because he was going to turn the ball over. Now he's coming into our system. Let's embrace him as a guy that's gotten a ton of reps, that has a ton of experience. And if Trevor Harris does go down or if Trevor Harris comes back and he's not in shape, and he throws the ball, not up to standard in training camp, then we have a guy that hey, look, we have a guy here that's played major reps.
That what I meant more was the dysfunctional reps. They're almost heavier reps. They're like better reps that he was repping in that organization with that, right? Sorry, do you want to go?
He's got some scars.
Yeah.
I mean, you always want guys that have scars.
Yeah, battle scars.
That have been through some times. So to switch topics a little bit here, Luke, maybe comment on the sort of the changing in the guard that I'm seeing in the coaching ranks. You know, the CFL for a long time was sort of the merry-go-round where you had these same coaches getting recycled over and over and over again, looking like Rick Campbell's maybe on the outside looking in, which is shocking to me, but exciting to have Buck Pierce take the reins in BC, Mark take the reins in Calgary, Mace here, you know, this sort of Dinwiddie and all the success he's had in Toronto, obviously. Do you see that as sort of snowballing from the success that Dinwiddie has had and sort of these younger guys starting to get a chance and opportunity?
I think that the reason that you're seeing this younger movement that's actually being successful, there's two phases, right? You could be a young coach, and we've seen younger movements in the Canadian Football League before that have just absolutely fallen flat and actually set programs back, right? I think the younger movement and the success some of those younger guys are having is a direct result of them understanding the generation of athlete that they're coaching today. I'll tell you the one guy I'm really excited about. And forget all the fluff and all the, oh man, his players, they all called the front office and vouched for. I think Mark Killam has a chance to be one of the better coaches in that new group. You've got a guy who has been one of the best coaches in terms of getting his position group or his, obviously he's the special teams coordinator, his guys ready, right? They've always been prepared. One of the things about Calgary, even back in their heyday, they've had exceptional special teams, and he's the guy guy. He's also seen John Huffnagel. He's also seen Dave Dickinson. I think this guy's got all the ingredients, or at least all the resources in place for him to be a success there in Edmonton. You've got to watch it. You can't just bring back all the old Edmonton Eskimos and you can't just kumbaya your way to a Grey Cup and say, oh, we're back to the Edmonton Eskimo way, blah, blah, blah. You've still got to do the coaching. You still got to do the work. But I think Killam's set up for some success there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Edmonton Elk really turned around. I'm not saying in first year, but I think, again, it could be good for Mark Killam. So, again, I think, man, this generation of coaching, the younger guys, the success is predicated on the fact that they actually can get through to this younger generation of athletes. I would be a terrible coach, I think, in this generation of Canadian Football League. I would tend to gravitate towards, I think, the more demanding, and I just don't think I would resonate with certain guys, right? And you have to know yourself. That's the first thing you have to do and understand as a coach, is you have to know who you are.
I think you'd be okay, Luke.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about the record of your flag football team this past year, but I still think you would do. I still think you'd do it.
About? What are you talking about? We were awesome. We were awesome. Man, we had those kids flying around. I will say that flag football, though. Listen, if you're 6 and 7 and you're out there and you're coaching with a scheme, that's crazy to me. We just wanted to have fun. I thought our guys were great.
Charbel De Beer, back on the defensive line. Does that excite you?
Absolutely. If Charbel stayed healthy, he was having a great year before he got hurt. A great year. And he's doing this. He's going up. That's exactly what you want. He was a guy that came in, and especially in the last couple of years, came in and nothing fell off. Right? He was the guy that could pull his own weight. He made a lot of plays in the short yardage situations, and he was starting to rush the passer really well. So the fact that he went down last year was probably one of the sadder things that happened to the Riders last year, because I was really enjoying watching Charbel play, and I can't wait to see him see what he puts together this offseason into next year.
that's a good Christmas present. I like that.
There's probably some more coming before the 25th.
Oh yeah, listen, guys. There's guys who are already signed that they just haven't announced yet, right? Like, that's how the CFL works. You're gonna sign a bunch of guys here, and then you're gonna slowly turn the tap on and trickle the information out.
Speaking of that, Trey Ford has just signed a 3-year extension with the Elks.
We talked about it 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just make sure we're branding that in.
Yeah.
Luke, wanted to bring up our ugly cousins from Winnipeg here. Obviously, a lot of change going on in their organization. They're rolling in where it sounds like they're not going to extend O'Shea and Walters. So that's odd. Now they've got their head scout leaving to go to Hamilton to become the GM there. You got Buck Pierce leaving to go to BC. Like, a lot of change going on in Winnipeg right now, and they're hosting the Grey Cup this year. You know, maybe not quite the festive season they had planned.
Buck leaving is depending on who they get back and who they put in that seat. Buck Pierce is it's yet to be determined what type of impact that has. Ted Gavea leaving that organization is absolutely humongous. It is absolutely humongous. And listen, there's been a lot of players signing, so I think that slid under the radar, but that was a fantastic get by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You're looking at a guy who has brought in some fantastic talent for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And make no mistake, Kyle Walters is going to get the credit. He should. He's the GM, and he's a really good administrator. The guy finding the talent was Gavea, and it was Danny Mack. So that was an absolutely amazing signing by the Ticats. I can't tell you guys how impressive that is. I think that it's going to be great for their organization, and it's going to be great for the Canadian Football League, because we got another guy who can recognize talent, who's going to be able to move the needle for another organization. It was a great get, and that's the biggest loss in my mind for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it kind of fell under the radar too, looking at sort of like you said, they seem to reload. Right? Like, okay, we lost Lawler. We're just going to put Schoen in there. Like, we're just going to find another guy. And if Hamilton
look
can
at the
get
defensive
that.
backs.
Oh,
Like, look at the defensive backs they brought in. Like, there was a point in time, I think 2-3 years in a row, where they would bring a guy in and then he would go to the NFL the next year and then they just replace him. Like, they were doing great.
They don't rebuild, they reload. That's what they used to say in Gull Lake about their 9-man football team. They don't
just a wagon.
But
Hey, that's my slogan for the buffet, boys.
Let's really talk about the big loss in the last 7 days, though. You and Wes Cates not winning the Gingerbread Building House at the Harvard Christmas party. Have you got over that
what do you
yet?
got to do, right? Like, what do you got to do? I mean, dude, there was people were stealing other people, getting other people's resources.
Yeah.
People had like teams of like 8. It's just me and Wes. And Wes out here with a Walmart put together. Like, man, we came in third, but I think I'm really hoping that A, I get invited back to the Harvard Christmas party next year, and B, I hope we do that again, because I'm gonna do some homework prior to getting in there. Like, you're not gonna see just this random approach to that. Like, me and Wes are coming with it next year.
You're gonna bring plus ones, and they're gonna be the bakers from Superstore Bakery.
Dude. Well, hey. You're going to Jeremy O'Day it, man. Hey, listen, if you want to be my plus one to the Harvard Christmas party, you got to have some Gingerbread House experience.
Exactly.
Right? You can't just be anybody.
That's the only way you got to dig out of this hole. That's the only way.
You know who I bring? I'm going to bring my daughter, Maddie. She can put together a gingerbread house now.
10 out of 10 gingerbread game?
Oh, 12 out of 10. Yeah. She's unreal. Yeah, and she's competitive.
Maddie.
She's worse than me.
Just get on a 2-year deal. 2-year deal. Don't go one, go 2-year deal.
Go 2 years.
Maddie.
You got to go back to back.
You're with Dad. Okay, then Wes has got to find a plus one. That was a lot of fun. I'll brief everyone. Their house was actually, I think, the best one, and they finished third. And there's two of them. There was just two of them.
The judges here.
I feel like they just didn't want to give it to us because we're not in the building all the time, But hey, like, we love Harvard just as much as everybody else, right? We're part of the family.
I know. I showed up late. You guys were there for the full thing. Like, that's disrespectful. But you know what? Like, you got the off season. You'll rebound. I know you. You'll put in the work. You guys will be back.
Yeah. You know what? You gotta. Yeah. That's all it's about. It's about visualizing success. It's about coming up with a game plan and using resources. That's all it is, man. Our gingerbread house is going to be epic next year.
Color commentator for our Rough Rider broadcast on 620 CKRM, third place winner of the Gingerbread House at the Harvard Christmas party, Luc Mullinder. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, boys. Have a great weekend.